Hello and welcome back to the Transfer Flow. And on today's podcast episode, we're looking at the Europa League and the European Conference League. How can Manchester United expect to get past Athletic Club, and can Spurs finally win a trophy in nearly 20 years? While Chelsea over in the Conference League have dominated the competition so far, but can they make their way past the might of Djurgården? That's all in today's episode of the Transfer Flow. So we're back for another midweek edition of the Transfer Flow. Look, for a moment there, it looked like it wasn't going to happen because I was coming to you live from a calculator. But today we're joined by, I think it's fair to say, European football expert and global football expert, Neel. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing amazing, Patrick. Yeah, this is exactly what I've been looking forward to ever since I joined you guys. This is the day I've been sort of building up to. So yeah, I'm very excited. As you say, talk about the might of Djurgården, Glimt. What more can you ask for?
Well, I mean, look, my being totally absent for the preamble before the show started because Riverside did not like my internet. That kind of feels like a good primer for how this is going to look today, where I offer very, very little and you offer a lot. But I don't know. I think, look, we're going to start with the Europa League, and we're going to start with the glamour tie in the Europa League, right? Because of the 4 games we're going to discuss today, Manchester United versus Athletic Club is by far the highest quality matchup. Like, these are the two teams with actually the best expected goal difference per 90 in the Europa League so far. Man United are top there, which is kind of amazing, and Athletic Club are second. United, despite being dreadful in the Premier League all season, and even worse, arguably, under Amorim than they were under Ten Hag, they have been pretty dominant by and large in the Europa, if maintaining some of the calamity football that we've seen from them domestically, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's been interesting. Obviously, as you say, they've very much put all their eggs in one basket. So you would expect better performances in the Europa League than the Premier League for sure.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, it's been weird. Like, as you say, what they're doing under Amorim for me has been a little difficult to sort of fully understand. I mean, obviously he's got a certain formation he sticks to, and certain like a style of play which he seems to like. But then he does make a lot of these tweaks for different games. Like, the way they played against Lyon was quite different to what you'd usually expect, or what you even usually saw. I mean, they basically did is they had like 7 people back. They got their front 3 to like drop back, offer to receive, and then run in behind. And it worked because Lyon's defending was dreadful. But it's been like, I guess, a combination of obviously them stepping it up for the Europa League, but also like Lyon's defending very questionable. Real Sociedad, who they beat in the previous round, having a pretty underwhelming season.
Yeah.
So I think they haven't really had a big test, certainly in the knockouts. And I think Athletic Club are definitely that test because I'm tempted to say they're my favorites for the competition.
Yeah, I think United are a really high event team in the tournament this season, right? You know, their games have seen an average of about 3.5 expected goals put together, because they've been one of the superior attacking sides and they haven't been that great defensively. Athletic Club are at the opposite end,
Yes.
right? Their attack has put up less XG than the other 3 teams that have made the semi-finals, but their defense has been by far the best in the competition. So do we expect them, given that I think the first leg is at Old Trafford, do we expect them to kind of try and keep it tight here and take it back to San Mames, where they have been, I mean, hilariously dominant, and obviously where they're trying to set up this homecoming final if they make it through?
Patrick, bad news for you. The first leg is at San Mames.
Oh, is it really? Okay, right.
Yeah.
That's it. That kind of makes it a bit interesting then, because then there's a bit more pressure on Athletic Club, right, to come out.
I was going to say, like, actually, as you said, if the first leg was at Old Trafford, second at San Mames, they probably have liked that better.
Yeah.
Because now they kind of have to do a job in the first leg. You expect them to, like, maybe take a lead and then defend it at Old Trafford, which isn't exactly what Athletic Club are suited to do, as you said. I mean, this team is built on defending. Ernesto Valverde is there in his 3rd stint at the club, and he's doing a fantastic job this time around. His first season wasn't so good. 22-23, they were like 8th. But then last year, they finished 5th to qualify and also won the Copa del Rey. their first major trophy in about 40 years, not counting the Super Copa, but first Copa La Liga in 40 years. Obviously, a big achievement. And this season, again, they're well on course to qualify for the Champions League.
Mhm.
Through the league, of course, if they win the Europa League as well. And now they're going for their first continental trophy ever. And as you said, the final is at San Mames. So, if they get there, it'll be an incredible, incredible day. But yeah, what I said about Man United not being tested so much in the knockouts, that kind of applies to Athletic Club to an extent,
Mhm.
because they finished second level with Lazio in the league phase, so they were very good there. But then, they beat Roma in the round of 16, largely thanks to the red card. Roma got really early on in the second leg. So, that's basically how they powered through to turn it around, because they actually lost the first leg. And then they also had a red card against Rangers in the quarterfinal. Rangers had a red card.
Mhm.
Somehow they didn't score in that first leg, despite being a man up for most of it and putting up like 2 or 3 XG or something. But then they got the job done in the second leg, obviously against a team that isn't quite so strong. But yeah, like defensive solidity is the key to everything. They have the lowest goals conceded in La Liga this season, second lowest XGA. They were second and third in those metrics last season. And yeah, you can expect to see this very compact 4-4-2 from them. That's what they do. That's, I think, what they're best known for. They're gonna
Mhm.
keep a super compact block, but they do step up as well. I'm not saying they're gonna be like a low block side, just defending in
Sure.
their own half. They actually have like the third highest field tilt in La Liga, behind Barcelona and Real Madrid. So
Mhm.
they actually control territory really well. They also had the most high turnovers in the league last season at 5.8 per 90, which is more than Barcelona this season, what they're averaging.
Mhm.
So, they can press well, and that's, I guess, going to be a problem for United as well. And they're also second this season for short ending high turnovers. So obviously they make them
Yeah.
count. So they're going to be an interesting side. It's going to be compact defending. It's going to be keeping it tight. Probably see more of this pressing in the first leg, especially if they're looking to start well, get lead. And then yeah, like their attack is going to be just pretty much largely in transition. But they're going to miss Nico Williams, really, because he's definitely out for the first leg,
Mhm.
possibly also out for the second leg. We're not sure. But obviously his brother Inyaki's still there. Oyan Sanset's having a great season,
Yeah.
just crashing the box a bunch of times. Works really well. And then there's Alex Berenguer, I think, who's one to keep an eye on in the absence of Nico. He's a nice sort of ball to feet player, although obviously not quite so dynamic one on one. And yeah, the striker, whoever it is, Gorka Guruseta or Marwan Sanadi, it's just going to be a big guy up top, contesting tons of aerial duels, making a nuisance of himself. So yeah, it's not going to be an easy one for United. They're also good at set pieces. They've scored 12 goals in La Liga from set pieces, which is the highest
Mhm.
tally. And United have conceded 12 in the Premier League from set pieces. So
Mm.
wouldn't be surprised if they get one that way. But yeah, as I said, I think they're really well set up for this kind of knockout football. That's why they won the Copa last season. And yeah, I'm tempted to say they're my favorites, even though like the sort of prediction models I looked at all have Tottenham. I guess that makes sense because they have the clearest route to the final.
Sure.
They're probably favorites to get there.
Mhm. Mhm.
But yeah, I'm tempted to say Athletic Club are my favorites for the Europa League.
Yeah, I think that's kind of reasonable because at least with Athletic Club, you know what their plan is and you know they can execute it. Whereas, yeah, United, I just think, well, what United
You know
shows
what the
up in
plan
this
is?
game, yeah, exactly. It's like
Are they
if
gonna?
it it's if it is it it's going to be Bruno Fernandes hero ball, and like maybe that works and maybe it doesn't, but yeah, it feels like they've got a lot of traction this season from having space for Højlund and Garnacho to run into in the Europa League. Garnacho's numbers and Højlund's numbers in the Europa League. These guys are at like 0.8 expected goals and assists, 0.9 expected goals and assists per 90, which is insane. But that to me is a product of, going against tiring defenses or going up against teams that will allow you to turn the match into chaos. Athletic Club are just not going to allow that.
Look,
Valverde
if
is
if,
not going to
if
allow that.
Athletic Club go up 1-0, I think it's over. Like I can't see anything happening thereafter, because they're not gonna step up. They're gonna drop back. And like you said, in that Leon type, Garnacho was just running, like carrying the ball half the pitch, half like every other time was looking up. He's,
Sure.
he's not gonna get that space against Athletic Club no matter what. So
That said though, I do hope that you're right and that they do kind of revert to last season's like harder pressing in this game, because Amorim's United have shown roughly zero ability to play out of a press. And, La Liga is more conservative in this regard than the Premier League, right? We do see fewer high turnovers. We do see fewer tackles in the final third. If you look at the Spanish numbers this season, then Athletic are fourth for final third tackles in Spain, and they have more shots from defensive actions than anyone else too. But in the Premier League, they'd rank 14th instead of fourth and fourth instead of first, so it's like, the Premier League this season has been intense, somewhat intense. Some of the bigger teams have also dropped off, so I guess there's a little bit of a push-pull here.
balance, yeah.
But it does just feel like Manchester United are completely ill-equipped to deal with any kind of pressure. We've seen this again and again where a ball goes back to Onana, clips it out to the corner flag, ball goes back to Onana, clips it out to the other flag. Eventually they lose it and give up a big chance. I think that if Athletic Club play that way, like if Athletic Club go a goal behind, it might be quite interesting to see them have to come out at United. Otherwise, we might be in for a competent but pretty boring game. That's my feeling, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely with you. If United go up somehow, then they have to step out, and yeah, they're not exactly the best at taking the initiative at all times. So
Sure.
that could make it really interesting, and maybe there'll be some flaws there. But yeah, like if they go up, switch to the other game. You've seen enough of that.
Well, I think we should probably talk about the other game, right? Because if this first match is like, at least according to expected goal difference, if this first match is 1 versus 2, this other match is 15th versus 23rd. So it's Tottenham versus Bodø Glimt. And you're established now as the Transfer Flow's resident Bodø Glimt expert because of your interest in their Fugazi transfer business. But, they're rolling it out this year with a bunch of guys who've been there in the past. What kind of threat do you think they pose for Spurs? Because they've been kind of erratic to get to this point. They've done well to get here, but it's not like you look at them and think they've dominated every round they've come through.
Look, one of the things we are thinking of for the listeners when we're doing this episode, because the title's probably going to have Spurs and trophy in some combination.
Mm-hmm.
We were seriously considering just saying no, thank you for listening to the transfer flow and ending it there. And this tie is set up exactly for that. Like, I mean, whatever sort of, you look at like club strength or whatever, and it's like Tottenham somewhere, Glimt are like out, you can't even see them. But like, this is perfectly set up for Tottenham to somehow bottle it. And one big reason for that is Glimt's home advantage.
Sure.
I would say they have the biggest home advantage in like European competitions. Now,
that is a crazy thing to say. Okay, I love this. Go on.
Let me explain. So, obviously, they don't have like a crazy fan base or not a massive stadium. It's not that. That's not the source of the home advantage. Source of the home advantage, for one, Bodø is 200 kilometers north of the Arctic Circle.
Mm-hmm.
It is cold. It's especially cold when the knockouts start. So like, I guess their home advantage kind of like goes down a bit with every like progressing knockout tie. But like, round of 16 going to Bodø is, that was an experience.
Sure, yeah.
But still, it's still cold there. And more importantly, because of how far up north they are, they can't have a grass pitch. It's just not possible to have a grass pitch there. They have a turf in their ground. And that makes it really interesting because, well, I should say I'm not an expert in this at all, but I have like just read a bit and done some research, and this is what I've understood. So, if someone is an expert in listening, please do correct me. But what I've understood with turf, obviously for one, it's different. Players feel different when they're on the different surface, so it's kind of like takes some getting used to for Spurs. But I mean, they can shortly train for that. That's not entirely the problem. The thing with Glimt is they have this style of play which is very possession dominant, very focused on ground passing. You'll see them in this kind of typical 2-3-2-3 setup in possession. Their fullbacks are a bit inside, deep, trying to play forward. High eights between the lines, and then a high, very wide front three, stretching the opposition's defense. And they're playing these quick ground passes, trying to get through. And with turf, what you get is like this consistency in the surface that they can be very clean with their passing at all times, and so they're like tougher to stop in that sense. So that's like one of the big sources of their advantage. Having the turf pitch, a different sort of pitch that they're used to much more than the opponent, and then having a style of play that combines or that sort of suits it really well, and of course having the weather, it just being quite cold still. Again, something they'll be more used to. So yeah, that's why I think they have a big home advantage. But yeah, like I said, like reasonably, I don't expect Glimt to go through. Um, like they have pretty much relied on this home advantage for their entire like knockout run, because
Hmm.
they beat 25-2 at home in the second leg to turn it around, get through. Then first leg they beat Olympiacos 3-0 at home, and then just held on second leg.
Sure.
Obviously Lazio as well, they beat 2-0, lost 3-1, won on penalties. Now this time first leg's in London, so second leg for them is at home. Tottenham have a simple job: win by multiple goals at home. That's
Hmm.
all you need to do. Like, if they leave a job for themselves to do in Bodø, I'm telling you, like that's the perfect setup for them to bottle it. Like, if somehow Glimt scam a 1-1 draw or something in
Mm.
London, yeah, then that's gonna be terrible for Spurs. But yeah, like reasonably you can expect, because like I said, they've lost all of these away legs because as you were alluding to before, this team isn't really that great.
Sure.
Do not sign their players. A lot of people have made this mistake. I think
Mhm.
I was doing some math. So like about, I think it was like about 60 odd million euros, which they've straight up scammed by my maths of these European teams. Because I'll run you through some names. So Håkon Evjen, Jens Petter Hauge, Patrick Berg, Erik Botheim, Joel Mvuka, Hugo Vetlesen, Albert Grunbeck, 15 million. That records transfer
Sure.
went to Southampton. He was actually a guy I really liked, but I think he also went to like he went to Rennes and then on loan to Southampton.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
We
I
talked
mean,
about him in January.
yeah, he was actually like a fun guy, but yeah, didn't work out so much. But Faris Mumbanya, like I said, it's the only success like the transfer who's left Glimt has been Victor Boniface,
Mm.
and he didn't do well at Glimt. He scored like 20 goals in 63 games or something.
Those are the guys you need to buy, Neil.
Yeah,
The guy who sucks at
look for
Glimt.
the guy who's doing the worst and buy him, because that's your bargain. But no, like as you said, now like almost over half of these guys are back at Glimt,
Yeah.
and so they kind of got this throwback team, and so like they do have some experienced players, who've been to like mainland Europe and at least trained at a high level, not played so much because they didn't get a lot
Mhm.
of game time. But yeah, like the whole deal with them is just beat them by comfortable margin at home, and just like do whatever, go to Bodø, see the mountains, just get the job done. That's
As
all they have to do. But you never know with Spurs.
but Spurs should be able to dominate the ball against them. Like, this is a team that's has like 60% of the ball domestically, but it drops to basically 50-50 in the Europa. And coming away to London, like
And
Spurs.
even that, by the way, the 50-50 is also
Mm,
again really inflated by their home, because they have
sure.
like against Lazio they had more possession at home. But yeah, like in London, you can reasonably expect Spurs to have over 60% possession.
Yeah.
And as you were saying, these guys they're like a possession dominant team at home. They finished like first and second in each of the last like 6 or so seasons. They're not set up to defend in a block. Like when we talk about Athletic Club,
Yeah.
we say they're really compact. They have a very good block. They can press. These guys don't have, like, they do not have the tools to deal with Spurs' individual talents alone.
Yeah.
So
This is,
yeah,
in theory, it should be giving Spurs exactly what they want. Like, here's all the ball, attack us.
and we can't defend too well.
Yes, exactly. And Spurs are going to do it. I mean, the problem is, of course, that like, well, I think there are a couple of problems. One, I guess, is I'm always really wary of the players are quitting on the manager thing. But some of Spurs' results recently are quite shocking. Some of their performances have been pretty shocking. However, you've got to assume that they get motivated for like first trophy in nearly
Win
20
a
years.
trophy, guys. Come on.
The other real danger, I think, of this tie is not to Spurs, but it's to the team that watches Jens Petter Hauge. And as you say,
Again,
like he's been good in the
again.
tournament. Like lots of passes into penalty area, really good expected assists, like lots of progressive carries into penalty area. And you look at him and you're like, he's been at Milan, he's been at Frankfurt, he's still 25. And then you're like, no, don't do
15 million.
it. Don't do it. So my worry is that like is not necessarily to Tottenham, but it's to it's to like West Ham or whoever watches Hauger and thinks that's the guy for us. But you're right. Look, fundamentally, this should be the other game is very finely balanced, and United, because of their players, like probably have a higher ceiling, but they're always closer to their floor. And Athletic Club have a much, much higher floor, right? Whereas in this game, Spurs should like come through it with relative ease. But I don't know, man. You never know. You never know.
There's one thing I know, it's that you never know. But yeah,
I think-
but like, reasonably, like, so I watched Spurs against Nottingham Forest this Monday, right? They were spamming crosses. As you said, they couldn't do anything, and then obviously Forest low block, and they were just like, I think they're like 50 crosses attempt or something in the second half. If you do that against Glimt, you will get 5xg because like those guys are not set up to defend crosses. So like, I can't see how Spurs can reasonably fail. But I mean, that's the beauty of it.
That's the perfect sentence.
They're going to show me how they fail.
Well, also, and then they're going to go. Then they're going to go to Bodø, and if you're sitting in the front row, if you live in the Arctic Circle, and you're sitting in the front row when Spurs come to Bodø, then there's a chance that you'll be able to catch Mickey van der Ven's hamstring as it flies off towards you. So do enjoy that. But these are really good. These are really good fixtures, actually. Like, we've got to say, like, there are 3 of the expected teams here, and one exciting, like, unexpected candidate who are the first Norwegian team to make a semi-final like this.
The first men's Norwegian team. But
sure, good point.
Actually, I was watching on Twitter the whole weekend, and I was waiting to be like, well, actually, but no. I think just for one thing, at the end, on a serious note, we should say, like, obviously we talked about Glimt and them kind of scamming their way to here. I mean, they've also, like I said, been helped by getting all of these massive fees, which have kept them at the top because now they have so much more money than most of the others in the Norwegian league. But like, you have to say they've done an impressive job in the big picture. 7 years ago, they were in the second tier. They came up, and like, first season they were lower. I think they finished 11th, but then every season after that they've been first or second, won 4 titles, and the basis of that did start with some good recruitment from like mostly the local and Scandinavian market, and also a bit from abroad. But like, their head coach Kjetil Knutsen, he's been absolutely fantastic for them. He has been there through all these 7 years, and led them to all these 4 titles. I'm very surprised no one's picked him up in that time. But yeah, he's like, I think if there's one person you're looking to hire from Glimt, it's got to be him. Don't go for the player, go for him.
It's very strange that he's never made the move, because he's been rumored to be on multiple shortlists over the last few years. But it seems that clubs are a little bit more cautious about hiring the manager.
The wrong thing.
But they're like, oh, these players are fine. Like, these guys who are like, skiing up the wing, like, we'll sign one of those. But I think these are really well set up. Like, on the one hand, can United pull themselves together and actually put a decent show on against Athletic Club? On the other hand, can Spurs avoid defeating themselves? It's the perfect set of narratives. Shall we go over to the Conference League then? Because the conference,
this is what I came here for.
Okay, right, cool. So obviously we're not. When you say what you came here for, we're obviously not talking about Fiorentina Betis, which actually is kind of like a pretty decent, like, Europa League type fixture.
Yeah.
Except for the fact that Fiorentina are already somehow Conference League specialists. You want to talk about Djurgården, right? Because Chelsea, they're heading to Sweden. Chelsea head to Sweden with as dominant a record as you could really hope for. I mean, they have lost the game. They lost to Liga, but they've played 10. They've won 9. They've got the best attack. They've got the best defense, and they're going to Sweden. So please give me a reason to believe. Well, I don't know if I need a reason to believe, but something to be interested in this fixture.
Yeah, look, let me start off by saying, like, Chelsea are going to win 100%. Like, this like, with Glimt Spurs, like, there's a question of how can Spurs might just find a way to mess it up. There is no way Chelsea messed this up. Look, I just wanted to talk about Djurgården. That's why I'm excited. I don't think they're going to do anything, but obviously it's a big achievement for them to get this far.
Sure.
They are the first men's Swedish team in the 21st century to reach a European semi-final.
Sure.
And they've like with Glimt, what it's been is they've been dominant domestically, and they've kind of consistently done decently in Europe. They had that win over Roma a couple of years ago. They've been there.
Hmm.
They've been sort of building to this. With Djurgården, it's just kind of come out of nowhere because since 2019, they last won league title in 2019. Since then, they finished fourth, third, second, fourth, and fourth last season. As we record, they've got 4 points from 4 games this season. They haven't been good. Like they haven't been great domestically. Forget about Europe. So yeah, it is pretty incredible that they got here. But they did finish sixth in the league stage, and then they had a turnaround against Paphos in the round of 16, and a pretty dramatic game against Rapid Wien in the quarterfinal, where they, I mean, again helped by a red card, where they I think got 4-1 win on the night in the end
Yeah, away from
to go
home.
through. Yeah,
Yeah.
in Vienna. So yeah, and I think that game had like two or three red cards, and they also had they had like three players go off injured, which is not ideal because they already have a bit of an injury crisis. Like I was
Okay.
looking through their injured list, and like one of their main strikers is injured. They lost Oscar Falenius, one of the sort of main like guys behind the striker, one of the main creators. He went off injured in that game. So yeah, that's not ideal. But they do have a new coach this season, Yanni Honkavara, a 49-year-old Finn.
Hmm.
Now, I have to. I think I'm
You
probably
know from
exposing
that name,
myself
you
as a
can spot a
fraud.
Finnish name. You can spot a Finnish name from like
Yeah,
100 miles
Honkavara.
away. Yeah.
Yeah, that is pure Finnish. But look, I'm probably gonna expose myself as a bit of a fraud here because
Mm.
I have to admit I haven't watched any of your Gordon after Honkavara took over.
Wow.
So yeah, well that was disappointing. But now here's where I redeem myself. I watched Honkavara at his previous club,
Oh my god.
Kups in Finland. They were playing a cup final, and I happened to catch that because that was being broadcast on One Football or something for some reason. Anyway,
God.
I watched that game, and what I saw there is Kups' goalkeeper was playing like at the edge of his third in possession. So they
Okay.
were actually like fun to watch in possession. Like they had some nice passing sequences. Now I looked at Djurgården's goalkeepers like heat maps. They
Hmm.
didn't seem that far, but there was some activity happening outside the box. So I just want to see if they actually do that against Chelsea, because I will be so impressed if like they will win my heart if they do that against
But
Chelsea.
you're talking about it like David Attenborough, where it's just like we are seeing some activity outside the penalty area from Djurgården's goalkeeper. Okay, I mean,
So,
sure, yeah, I would love to
that's
see
what
it.
I'm watching for in this dialogue. If their goalkeeper kicks the ball outside the box, that's a win in my heart. So, but no, okay, I'll name a couple of players to watch at the very least. So there's this guy Keita Kusugi, a 19-year-old
Hmm.
Japanese left back. He's probably the most exciting talent in the side. I mean, their last left back, Samuel Dahl, he left for Roma last summer. He was a very nice prospect, really well rounded. I mean, I think he was a good signing for Roma at the time under De Rossi, but then
Hmm.
they did a bunch of very interesting stuff, to say the least. And so poor guy,
Sure.
he had to be loaned off to Benfica, so he's there right now. But yeah, good for Kosugi though, because as I said, he's just 19. Looks pretty well rounded from the little I've seen, and yeah, he's probably the one to watch in this game. Obviously, he'll have a very tough test you'd expect against Noni Madueke defensively, but I mean his bigger qualities I've seen are on the ball, so he's probably one to watch. And there's Tobias Gulliksen, ex Glimt, actually ties
Hmm.
in nicely. He's probably like the key creator in the side, especially after the injuries. So yeah, they'll probably try and look to get the ball to him and see if he can do something. I mean, look, all the best to him. But like, it would be nice if he does.
Mm.
And yeah, that's about it. But you know what? Actually, a fun activity for you, uh, with regard to Finnish names, Patrick, or even listeners, if you're like on a screen, have a screen handy, go over to Yanni Honkavara's career history,
Hmm.
right? Look it up and try and pronounce the names of the illustrious clubs that he's played for.
Oh my god. Okay. But while I'm doing that, I also just wanted to talk a little bit about Tokmak Nguyen,
Yes.
who I think does deserve, he's got 7 goals and assists in the Europa League, but he's kind of got an amazing story because he's Norwegian, but he was born in Kenya because his parents were South Sudanese refugees and then ended up in Norway at 5 years old. and now is like tearing it up in his early 30s at Djurgården. So that's like a really
And he's not
fun
even a
story, I think.
striker. He's like he play, or at least
Oh my
used to
god.
play more as a winger. But then now they sold like their main striker, Dennis Humet, and the other guy got injured. So he's had to play as a striker. And yeah, you're right. He's done well. Also moves nicely. I think you've just pulled up the list of
Yeah.
Danny Hokkawara's
Yeah.
clubs.
Okay, so
This
we've
is
got Cups. We've got
yeah, we've
Cups.
got clubs.
And also we've got
But I'm telling you to read
Finland
this.
as an assistant.
No, I'm not. And his coaching career is fine. That's easy.
Oh, okay.
Look at his playing career. That's where the real fun is.
Okay, so there's like, okay, I don't know the pronunciation of the letters, but I probably just go for like sort of a German type thing. So it'd be like Tippe, like Sineyoki. Then there's Jönsson Palo.
Sounds about right.
Yippo is fun. Vikingit, which is like Viking shit. Sommeronvoimer, Kontu, and again a return to Vikingit. So I'll tell you what, he's got. I mean, these numbers look like they're quite wrong to me, but he's got. I've got to question the math here, but his strike rate looks very impressive.
Nah, that math is horrendous.
Yeah, it's like I think I'm seeing about 20 goals here, but it says 118 to
multiply something.
Yeah, but look, I mean, this is kind of fun stuff, and then like Finland, Suomi. So we look, an apology as always to our.
If we have any Finnish listeners, I think this was the last episode they've tuned into. We're not getting them back.
But I think if we have Finnish listeners, then their connection right now is probably even dodgier than mine. It's really fun. It's really fun when you can actually discover something like watching a game like this. Obviously, for you, it's just like old hat watching a manager whose material you viewed before. But it would be nice to see them put on some kind of show, even if we've got to assume that they get told.
And the first leg's at home for them, so
sure.
Chelsea lost in Warsaw.
They did.
I mean, obviously, second leg they had the lead and all that. But I mean, they could make it. I mean, I think obviously Chelsea like blow them away in Stamford Bridge, not a question. Even if like something goes up in the first leg, and they probably win the first leg. But I think like it could be a contest in the first leg at least. Like I don't think it's just going to be like 5-0 or something.
And of course as well, like from Djurgården's point of view, the one good thing, you're coming up against like the best team in the tournament, but Chelsea are in a very tight like Champions League race. They by no means they guaranteed a spot. In fact, they've still got, I'd say, reasonably I mean, maybe that Villa defeat last night has helped them out quite a bit, but still it's a difficult situation that they're in. So they are going to have one eye on that and sort of just assume that they'll coast past Djurgården. So while that's probably true,
the weird thing is, like all basically except the top 4 leagues, all the leagues when their club is in Europe, they give them a weekend off,
sure.
Let them focus on the European tie fully. I haven't looked into why, but for some reason, like the Swedish Federation haven't done that for Djurgården. They've done the exact opposite. These guys have 5 games in the next 15 days.
Wow.
They have like a game on the Monday, then on the Thursday the Europa League tie game on like Monday again, and then the second leg on Thursday. So like these guys have not gotten a break. I don't know why. Like it seems very weird. Why would they do that? But and like I said, they also have this injury crisis thing going on. Like they have 6 senior players injured. Wow. So yeah, it's not ideal for Djurgården either. But you're right. With Chelsea, it's so interesting because like with United and Spurs, all their eggs are in one basket. They have no choice. Like this is all they've got. With Chelsea, it's interesting for 2 reasons. One, obviously that's the tight race. But 2, they win here, they get whatever prize money they get for winning, but they only get Europa League guaranteed. You if you're trying to finish for the Champions League, which ultimately will give you more money through qualifying and assuming you reach the knockouts, which at least you get to like the first round in the the big table thing. What do you prioritize then? Because then it gets really interesting. And they don't have as you said, like they have, I guess the Liverpool game we can probably dismiss now because they'll probably be champions by that time. But they still have like Newcastle, they still have Forest. Yeah. So it's very interesting. And they like their star players also aren't firing weirdly at this time. Like Palmer and Jackson have been quiet. Madueke is coming back from injury. Like you can't play them all for all the games. Like through the tournament they did like the A team, B team thing where they just sent 11 people somewhere.
Yeah, it's been like
Off you go to Kazakhstan.
Sancho and Nkunku and Mark Guiu has got like 6 goals in the Conference League, right? So they've just been they've been rolling that out. But yeah, I agree. Like that is a kind of complication for them because you can't imagine that from their enormous enormous deficit point of view that the difference between Europa League and Conference League is that big for them, whereas the difference between anything else and Champions League is like indescribably huge. So I don't know. Look, we can't talk ourselves into Djurgården here. There's just it's impossible to. Shall we look at the last game? Because the last game is a really nicely poised fixture. You got Fiorentina, who have had a pretty good defense in Serie A, and the attack is a little bit weaker, and Betis, who have slightly better attack and a slightly weaker defense. Fiorentina have made interesting strides this season under Raffaele Palladino, right? Obviously, you've got Moise Kean, who's like the big story. He's
their entire attack.
He is their entire attack, but it's interesting that he's done really well at creating his own chances off take-ons. Like kind of like a winger, and they're really good at hitting him with long balls. The question is whether they end up pinned in by Betis, right? And then Isco, who hasn't really played much in the Conference League, but presumably will at this stage, whether he can start to find Bakambu, because Bakambu has pretty much been like on leave from domestic football. He's played more minutes in the Conference League than he has in domestic football.
Has he actually?
Yeah. He's got like 600 minutes in La Liga, but he's got 760 in the Conference League, and he's got 8 goals. Like the guy does reliably get chances and finish them. So you imagine Isco is going to come in now, but I don't know really. I can't really tell whether the long outboard to Ken and the wingers is gonna see them get at the back line, or whether this kind of man orientated man marking thing that they do is going to result in just a row of 10 guys across the box and Betis just like pinning them indefinitely.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this. It's an interesting one, both like from this game's point of view, but I was also thinking like who's got a better chance of doing something against Chelsea? Because reasonably, like through the season, everyone's been talking like Chelsea just walk to the Europa League. They're not going to be able to walk the Conference League, rather. They're not going to be able to walk in the final. Like whether it's Fiorentina or Betis, they're going to do something. It's not going to be like a Djurgården kind of tie, right? So it's interesting about both ways. With Betis, what I feel is like you say, they're fun. They're really fun in attack, but they're also like rely on transitions quite a bit. It's like pretty much their main source. Otherwise, as you said, it's just like get the ball to Isco or Lo Celso if he's playing, and please do something. But with Fiorentina, I mean, it's again tough to say because Fiorentina have like 2 kind of defensive approaches. One, which they kind of mostly use against like lower table or mid-table teams, is this super player-oriented high press. If they do that against Betis, I do think there's a chance of them getting sliced open because Betis' front 4 is quite good in transition. They link up well, carry well. I mean, obviously they have Anthony on one wing who's good at carrying into space and links up decently. Obviously, Isco Lo Celso, who has the 10, is great at just feeding. Jesus Rodriguez on the left wing, youngster, or Abdeza Zuli. I think Kim wrote a newsletter about Jesus Rodriguez recently. The guy only dribbles. That is all he ever does.
That's all he does.
It's just pure dribbling, but he's fun to watch at least.
And that's perfect if a team does try and man mark you, right? Because you got this guy who just can kind of break the structure by himself.
Yeah. So and then like as you said, the striker's interesting because like Bakambu is going crazy in the Conference League. But then they signed Cucho Hernandez in January, and they've been using him in La Liga. He hasn't really scored much. He's got a couple goals, but like he links up well. He's not like a pure number 9. Although he does have some goals in him, like especially at Columbus Crew in MLS, he's scored a fair few. But it's interesting because he's probably more of a linker. So if they're trying to transition more, he might be better at just facilitating that. So yeah, I think if Fiorentina do that high press, Betis can definitely find some ways to get through them. Fiorentina's other thing is a low block. And really, really low block.
Yeah.
Like, almost all in their own half. But they also have this like very player-oriented approach even in this low block quite often.
Mhm.
So like there's still ways to open them up. It's not like an athletic club low block, I'd say, which is, like once they go into that low block, they're so
Sure.
hard to pull out of it. Fiorentina, you can do something, especially if you add some more rotations and stuff. So it's not like rock solid. But then they also have the threat of Ken, as you were saying. He's been amazing. He's got over like 20 goals across all competitions,
Mhm.
and yeah, 17 in the league alone. And yeah, I mean, they like at the lowest they go into like this 5-3-1-1 when they're like
Mhm.
deepest. So Ken is obviously up top, like he's high, he's waiting to run in behind. Goodmanson, usually like the second striker, drops back to like offer like a temporary outlet. You kind of just look for him, and then he either lays it off to someone to play it into Ken, or he turns and plays it into Ken. So they have like that one clear attacking approach on the counter. But then yeah, like if you put a like if Betis take the lead, then like I don't know about Fiorentina, because
Sure.
their like general attacking isn't, especially when they, like I said, they have these two sort of almost approaches. When they're in that high press approach, they do have a decent attack. When they're in this low block thing, their attack is like, yeah, it's just you get Ken to do
Sure.
something, otherwise we can't do anything. I mean, if you look at the results, right, it's so interesting because they've got so many big wins in the league. They've beaten Atalanta, beaten Juve, beaten Milan, beaten Inter, done the double against Lazio,
Mm.
and then they've lost to Hellas Verona and an absolutely horrendous Monza side. Like Monza are so bad, and they didn't just lose to them. They lost one game. They drew the reverse fixture. They haven't beaten
Mm.
Monza, and they've done the double against Lazio. So I think that just sums up Fiorentina, and I think that's why if we think about the final,
Mm.
I think Betis have a better chance because, well, a quick question for you, Patrick. Barcelona have dropped points in 9 La Liga games this season. How many teams do you think are unbeaten against Barca in La Liga this season? And like, who are they?
Oh my god. Okay, well, I definitely do not know this, but like, I'm assuming, like, Betis had a draw with them. So, them didn't was it?
This
I
month?
w- I want to I want to say Osasuna or someone in there. There's someone insane like that. I don't know, two or three.
Yeah. So like I said, they must have dropped points 9 times in La Liga this season.
Mm-hmm.
The only team to go unbeaten against them are Real Betis, and
Cool.
even in their remaining fixtures, like they've beaten everyone left. So the only team to go unbeaten against Barca this season are going to be Real Betis.
That's
I think,
very interesting.
yeah, like I think the underrated part about them, which we saw in those Barca games, is that they can drop into this compact block
Mm.
deep, and they can frustrate people. I mean, like if you draw twice against Barcelona, yeah, that says a lot. Like
Sure.
this Barca attack is insane. I mean, I was watching the Mallorca game last night. They were flooding through them. It was just insane how they
Mm.
could. Because Mallorca also have a good defense. Like Mallorca had like 10 people in the box all the time, and they still found a way through. So with Betis, you can get a compact low block, and you do have some attacking threat. I think it's when they press that they're more exposed.
Sure.
But then on the flip side with Chelsea, it's also like, if they press, it's probably going to be Robert Sanchez in goal. Uh,
Sure.
so then, you can do something there. You might get a free goal. You never know.
Yeah, and that Barcelona thing is really interesting because I was going to say, like, my concern about Betis is that they have been a very kind of positive field tilt side. Like,
Hmm.
they're really good for final third touches and attacking penalty area touches. They really do dominate territory. Well, if they don't have the ability to do that against Chelsea, what's going to happen? But yeah, I think that. But Fiorentina, if they drop deep against Chelsea, then it's just like Chelsea are gonna be kind of fine with that. Like that, you've got to back them to find some way through
I mean,
eventually.
that's what they've done the whole tournament.
Yeah, basically. So, but I don't know. Like, it's the classic Pellegrini thing, isn't it? If you give
Yeah.
Pellegrini some good passing talent, then he will produce an interesting, enjoyable attack. And he's got quite interesting centre backs there as well, right? He's got Badger, he's got Nathan, who's is he 24 now? So like, so these guys are kind of interesting players to watch. They're unusual types of centre backs, I think, for a team that you would see dropping into a low block. Okay, look, Chelsea going to win the previous one, but Fiorentina Betis. It sounds like we're giving the edge to Betis here.
Yeah, I'm tempted to do that. I think more tempted
It's
because
close
I
though.
think Betis have a better chance against Chelsea. That's why like I
Sure.
want to see them win. But yeah, like the tie, as you said, could really go either way. Yeah, probably Betis just have a bit, but then it really depends on like what sort of approach Fiorentina take.
Yeah.
I guess a lot rests on that because I mean, yeah, they can definitely frustrate Betis if they drop into a low block. Where's the first leg? I think that might give us a good metric to guess by.
The
First leg
concern of
is in Betis, in Seville, not in Betis, of course.
okay.
Yeah. So then Fiorentina could low block in that leg certainly, and then it gets interesting.
It could get
Yeah.
interesting. And I would like to see Moise Kean chuck around some Chelsea centre-backs. Plus, of course, Fiorentina have a chance here to go to a third Conference League final.
And lose
To
again.
lose a third Conference League final in a row. Okay, I think that probably brings us to an end for this. But we will check in on these games again after, they've actually happened. We're going to have Neel back in a couple of weeks, by which point we'll actually be able to discuss the outcomes almost. Oh, no, we'll have the second leg
Right.
coming up.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Okay,
We'll
right.
recommend the morning.
Well, it's nice to get an expert view of some of these teams. I've got to say, Neel, where can people find you if they want to hear about cups and all the other stuff that we've talked about today?
Yeah, you can head over to @Neel on Twitter or Blue Sky. So that's just my name flipped around. Yeah, you will see me posting about some random teams I'm watching from time to time. So yeah,
It is
I'll
kind of
definitely post about the
amazing.
Conference League to be
Like,
sure.
I know I say this every time, but it is kind of amazing that you'll be like, this guy has just scored for like the Belgian second division team. Like what a tournament they're having, and I'm like, yeah, great.
Sure,
Like,
man.
I'm glad that someone's watching this. Like, thank you very much. Please let us know if there's anything that you want us to discuss on the coming weeks. We've got some rebuilds coming up for you. We've got Manchester United and Liverpool up first. So
I'll be rebuilding Djurgården. No.
Depends. Once all their players are inevitably poached after the heroic victory over Chelsea will probably, if their goalkeeper does have a single successful
One
pass
save
from outside the box,
Oh, yeah.
Chelsea are gonna buy that guy, right?
I didn't think about that. That's so right. Yeah. But he's like a 31-year-old. So
When does this ever stop Chelsea? Chelsea don't. Okay,
no, I
we
mean,
can't get into
they
the
don't do
Chelsea goalkeeper
anything
thing.
other
Neil.
than under 21s at this point.
We
So
can't get into the
he's
Chelsea
gonna have to do
goalkeeper
age
thing, Neil.
fraud.
Please. It will never end if we get into the Chelsea goalkeeper situation. Thank you for watching. We appreciate you. Please do like and subscribe. Leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast app, and we'll catch you next time. Bye bye.